Hey guys, welcome back to Russian Libertas Corpus. That's a YouTube channel where we, Alexei Postnikov and Gala Bogatova, are talking about Russia, Russian politics, Russian society, and anything about Russia, basically. So if you have any questions, let us know in the comments. We will answer them. The next video will be answering your questions. So stay tuned. But today we're gonna talk about. I would say we can frame it as like a broader topic of how much power words have in today's society overall, narratives and all that. And the narrower topic would be Russian ideology. So not very narrow though.
I think it's pretty focused because we're speaking about a certain location and a certain paradigm. So I think it's pretty.
Yeah.
We're recording this video due to the latest news that Ukrainian parliament has accepted a new term in the overall legislation. Not even just the legislation, just to operating in an official discourse as such, which is Russism.
Or
right?
Russism.
Or Russism. Yes. So this terminology is basically categorizing a certain political paradigm that is dominant in Russia right now. And it is connected to a certain specific national fascism or sort of fascism. Ukrainian parliament accepted this term to draw the line between the classical concept of fascism coming from Europe and the national specific kind of fascism coming from Russia. This is the first function of this newborn term. I would say it's not so newborn. It was pretty popular lately, but I'd say this is a freshly, officially accepted term as such.
Right. So, sorry, it came from the, let's say, a public discourse where in the same discourse, for example, calling Russian soldiers in Ukraine orcs, and by extension, sometimes calling all Russians orcs, as a reference to, Lord of the Rings and Mordor. Russism was among, like in this category of just like publicly used words
it's a grassroots social media term that just was born from
to address the enemy in this situation. And I just want to make a disclaimer that in this video we're not gonna say like, oh, Ukrainian parliament did the wrong thing, blah 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 blah, because Ukraine is at war and they do whatever they feel like doing to hold Russian aggression and hopefully push back. The problem, though, when we're introducing such words, such terms to, I would say, like scientific discourse or the discourse of international politics, I think we need to be really careful with that.
Alex, I'm really curious about your opinion about this term because I think that there are very helpful sides of this term. I think that there is a functionality behind this term. Why I think there are helpful sides or attributes to this new freshly accepted term. First of all, this was the intention behind this was to distinguish Russians who defend Ukraine at war, yes. In order to distinguish Russians who are opposed to Putin's regime, who are trying to mitigate the consequences of this war, in order to not put all Russians in one scope of fascists as such, to distinguish Russians and Russists. So on one hand, there is a helpful repercussion of this term. It's true. Yes, okay. It was actually one of the intentions expressed behind, when the parliament leaders accepted this term. There was an intention to distinguish Russians who are actually at war right now on Ukrainian side. Yeah. and those who are trying to battle Putin with whatever means they have, and to avoid including all Russians into one category of the enemy.
Oh, yeah, okay. If I may, I think this actually gonna make exactly the opposite because
But wait a
yes.
second.
Okay.
Like what I'm saying right now is that there is the reason. There is a helpful repercussion on in minds of people who accept this. However, as any new coming term that is accepted officially in the public discourse and that can affect human interaction, right, and social microaggressions, of course, it can have very unexpected consequences. And here I would like to
Right,
learn
yeah.
more about what your opinion is.
I would say this will have, if it indeed will be adopted in some sort of diplomatic language or the language of international relationship, it's gonna achieve exactly the opposite of the claiming intentions, because first of all, what we hear in this word, basically it's made up of two words, Russia and fascism, which now let's go back to the history. Let's talk about the fascism itself. It started as an official ideology of Mussolini's Italy. So Mussolini come up with this term to describe his own regime. So it was a self-titled regime. First of all, it was an Italian word. Yet in the word itself, fascism is not connected to Italy. It wasn't called. They might call it like Romanism because they wanted to restore Roman Empire,
Right.
or Italy, or nobody even say Mussolinism, but well, he invented that, so that's original fascism. Then we have Germany, who developed the fascism into their own version of it with now I'm talking about Nazism and Nazis. Yet again, Nazis were, it's sozialistisch, pardon my German, it was a self-naming, so Nazi were calling themselves that. Then let's take another example, another fascist regime, which was Franco in Spain. Nobody called it, for example, like Spanishism or Spaniism. It was called Frankism by the name of the dictator. When we're using the word describing the political regime, we're actually not touching nations, ethnicity, nationalities at all. In 2 or 3 cases, Nazis and Italian fascists, it was self-chosen name. Frankism kind of makes sense because that was the name of the dictator. So in Russia, we had Putinism as our way to describe what's going on in Russia for years now. And my main problem with this wordplay is that it targeting Russians, or maybe even broader Russian-speaking people.
Okay, so what I hear that you're saying is that because the root of this word is attached to a certain nationality, the sense of fascism or a specific type that is prevalent in this country is attaching an imaginary community, right, to a certain or to the people of certain either nationality or language speakers, right? So there is a certain repercussion to that. I would say it is quite dangerous. However, it is twofold, in my opinion. It is twofold. There is a danger of attaching or labeling all Russians as Russists, but at the same time, there is at least a certain outline, a certain category that is excluding all Russians from the fascist standard. So I would say that what I see here in the discourse, that we indeed have to be extremely careful using this term and mindful of not keeping it in the vocabulary once Russia becomes non-fascist. So, and there is a danger into it.
Again, once you brought something on the table, once something became a very usable word, and it's not, something that you can like take back if it goes somewhere. And more than that, we can talk and like parliamentaries, representatives in the Ukraine can say that yes, we made this because we want to create a distinction between Russians on the Putin's side, let's say, and Russians who are against Putin. But well, first question, like, what's wrong with Putinism? I think it's pretty solid. And again, we were using it for years now. I mean, Russia is Putinist country right now. And it's going to end after end of Putin, the same way, for example, Frankism ended after the death of Franco. So, first of all, I don't see any reason to not use Putinism as an official term, if we want to go into official terms, and not use the word that has attachment to the nationality or ethnicity or even the language as a replacement for the word that works, I think, perfectly fine. If you don't think Putinism doesn't describe, Russian regime, let's argue in the comments, but I think it perfectly does. It's the same, for example, as Stalinism. Even inside Soviet Union, being totalitarian, so-called communistic country, or Bolshevist country, we have Stalinism as a certain period. Same with China and Maoism. Right now, China is not Maoist. China used to be Maoist when Mao was alive. At the same time, we have never seen the naming of the regime after a nation. It wasn't Germany,
Right,
it wasn't Italy.
Right,
It wasn't,
so this
yes.
term, in your opinion, this term actually by nature already implies something excluding, something discriminatory towards certain nationality.
Yeah.
Right? That's your opinion.
That's my main point. And we can talk as much as we want about, careful use of terms, but okay, let's ask ourselves which words are carefully used these days, like with a lot of thought process behind it, not just like slap it on something that you, let's say, don't like or not agree with. I mean, labeling, let's face it, is one of the ways modern world communicates with social media and hashtags.
Right. And creates social movements.
Yes. So 100% what will happen if this word indeed gonna go out into the international discourse, Russians will be perceived generally as fascist. All Russians are fascist. That's what's gonna happen, and that's my problem with it. Because we live in the world of narratives where narratives are maybe stronger than ever. So that was my first take and the first part of my thoughts about using this word officially in the official discourse. The second part is more of an essential critique, because if we're talking again about let's say Russian fascism as an ideology, it doesn't describe what Putin is doing, I wouldn't say at all, but that's another problem with Russia. Russia is fascist by the mechanics of power, by the administrative functions of the government, by the way they're trying to mobilize people in broader sense, not only for the war right now, but it is not an ideology. It doesn't have values. But Putin struggles with creating values of, why we're doing that. They have like so much, we're doing this because Ukraine are Nazis. We're doing this because they wanted to attack us first. We're doing this because of NATO. And they shifting from one uh, explanation to the other. And most importantly, Putin does not have a picture of the future in this. And any totalitarian ideology did. They all were fucked up, but they were selling current suffering, repressions, mass murders, etc., for the people in exchange for this great future, the eternal Reich or the beautiful communism, the beautiful communistic future. Putin does not have anything. The future is completely unclear, and the whole the narratives of the propaganda do not work on the picture of future at all, because basically the future that we can get out of the Russian narratives is just struggle and surviving, because spoiler alert, this is Putin's narratives, because his goal is to survive, and for him to survive is to stay in power, and that's the end of Russian ideology. Russian ideology completely consists of Putin maintaining power and some, on top bullshit narratives on top of that, like a skeleton. So talking about Russian ideology, just slapping the word Russia and just, like all Russians are fascists, and suggesting that there's some ideology behind it, I think it's very wrong.
Okay, this is a very valid point that this ideology is more personalistic than it is social. However, I'm wondering about your opinion about people who support this, like the masses who actually sincerely support this. What do you think to them? What kind of injustice is this term doing? Because Putin indeed created just an ideology of his personal privilege to be in power forever, but there are people who support that sincerely. What do you think about it?
Well, I mean, how should we call them? Or Putinists? The same as we still, for example, in Russia, we still have Stalinists. There are still Maoists, Trotskyists. That kind of works. And if someone will say, like, oh, I'm a Stalinist, if you know a little bit about, Stalin's regime, you can get like, oh, okay, that's what this person stands for. Putinist, the same, because okay, stands by Putin. What Putin does, he starts wars. Well, one war, aggressive and just, and he maintains power, and he does everything to achieve this goal. And again, he doesn't even have idea for the future after him, because he's not trying to pick his next in line successor. He doesn't try to make one of his daughters, fully grown daughters, his successors. As we like compare him to Lukashenko in Belarus, who's actually trying to pull his son to be the next, leader. Putin does not have that. For Putin, maybe basically it seems like he wants to live forever, and he doesn't have an idea that one day he's gonna die. And so that's why he doesn't have any future behind his life, even for himself.
In fact, I think what this ideology stands for does not end on Putin. It's something like Eurasianism that they promote, that Russia needs to be the center of the region, that Russia needs to be the leader. But still, it's certain people promoting this and offering this as an ideology. And despite the fact that it does promote Russia as, as the core nation of the region that is called to be the hegemon, is called to be the dominant country, still, indeed, this political doctrine is closely attached to a person who's promoting. So I'm wondering, dear friends, what do you think about it? Do you think that this term actually serves the both sides, that it's helpful, that it helps segregate Russians from Putin's supporters? or do you think it causes more damage than good? I'm really curious about your opinion. Please debate with us, share your stance on that, and until now.
Or it creates only damage and there is completely no use for that, because that's where I'm standing, because all
Please argue with
above.
him. Argue with him, challenge him, or agree with him.
Yeah. So that's it for today. Let's talk more about this. We finally argued, which is great. It's not never happened before.
I actually never argued with you. I just challenge you to create dynamics for
okay,
our
cool.
favorite viewers.
Nice. Well, hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, press like, subscribe to the channel, show it to your friends, the video and the channel, and hit the bell. And until then, bye.